Now, I got a story for you. It just hit the news wire about 5 days ago. And how many of you have heard about the Walter car story? Yeah, about 5 of you. Let me share it with you. So it was in the Washington Post and the USA Today and probably some other areas. Well, anyway, Walter Carr is this gentleman right here. He's 20 years old. He's a college student from Birmingham, Alabama, as far as Montana as you can get. Well, anyway, he was starting his new moving job, like working for a mover, the next day. But his car broke down. And the first place that he was going to help move somebody was 20 miles away. And despite desperate pleas and text messages to his friends, he couldn't find a ride. When all efforts failed, Walter decided to walk. Well, Google Maps says it's take about 8 hours on foot, and he figured he could do it in less because he had been a cross-country runner in high school. Now, he had meager means, so at 8 o'clock he ate a meal of bologna and eggs. Now, who eats bologna and eggs? I certainly did. It was either that or Spam when I was growing up. At 8 p.m., Carr ate a meal of bologna and eggs and took a nap. Anytime you eat bologna, especially if it's fried, you need a nap, right? Don't you? Yeah. You know how it cups up and then you got to cut it. At midnight, he woke up. He grabbed it. Now here, this gets interesting. He grabbed his wallet. He got his phone. He got a baseball and a kitchen knife to protect him from truck dealers. No, stray dogs. Stray dogs. The reason that he needed a baseball was if the dog came after, he'd throw the ball so the dog would go fetch it. Then he'd keep walking. Yeah. So anyway, at midnight, okay, so I've always been that person who figured things out on my own, Carr said. I went out walking. He jogged some, walked some, legs started burning. He tried to stay focused on the task at hand. He had no money because he had just paid his rent. Now, he was stopped by a policeman. Now, usually that can be difficult, right? In the dark. Well, anyway, the policeman picked him up, paid for a meal, and then dropped him off at a church because the policeman's shift was ending. Well, he waited at the church for a little while, but another police officer didn't come. So what'd he do? He started walking. Then another policeman picked him up and took him to the location for the move at 6:30 a.m. Now keep in mind, he had to be there at 8 a.m. This kills me. The homeowner asked if he wanted to take a nap and eat something, and he kindly declined, saying, "How about if we just start working?" The homeowner, touched, started crying and posted her story on social media. And after the move, Walter, now this is this guy who went 20 miles already, took the time to play basketball with the person that was moving, her 3 kids. He said it was the way he was raised and that nothing is impossible unless you say it is impossible. Well, on the following Sunday, the CEO of Bellhop's, his employer, asked him to meet Walter at a coffee shop. Well, Walter agreed, and guess what he had to do? He walked there. He met him at the coffee shop. The CEO told him, "We have a high bar for heart and grit, and you just blew it away." The owner of Bellhop's at that point gave him his 2014 Ford Escape, so humbled by the commitment made by a new employee. Now, this is a direct quote from Walter Carr. The lesson of my story is it's great to reach people. I always wanted to inspire people. He said, don't let nobody tell you you can't do something. It's up to us on whether we can. Isn't that encouraging? This young man's only 20 years old. It's a great lesson for all of us. This is Lamy. This is the lady that Her house was getting moved by Walter. And this is Walter, of course, after being presented with the Ford Escape by the CEO there. A lot of other good pictures. That's the policeman that picked him up. It's just such an encouraging message about the human spirit and will. And let me tell you this, to all of you, you can do this. Right? If you leave this town hall, at some point, you're going to be dealing with something. The message is that this can inspire you greater. You can do this. Whatever you're doubting, you can do. Now, I want to take you into Montana for the Montana mindset. Now, let me show you. This is geographical, for all of your guys' benefits. So right here, it's a tri-state area. This is the Spokane office right here. You can kind of wave at Hank and Mike and all those guys. Now, this is the skinny neck of Idaho. Many of you have heard of Coeur d'Alene, right? That's where all of the Californians are moving to. But then, as Coeur d'Alene gets full, they move to Montana. That's just a joke, all right? Let's lighten up a little bit. So anyway, this you probably heard, that's a picture of Glacier Park. Now let me give you a little bit of insight into Montana, because I'm sure in our regular vernacular, we don't talk about Montana that much, right? Well, after the Fogerty concert, we drove over on Friday. It's about 258 miles from Spokane to in and around this area. We went to the Flathead Whitefish area. You know that Montana is known as the Big Sky, right? If you ever go there, you go, I could see cowboys here. It is truly big. It's limitless. It's glorious. It's wild. It's bold. The state of Montana is the fourth largest geographically. Now, that's behind where? Alaska, Texas. Well, that depends. If California breaks into 3, Montana will be 3rd. That's kind of sensatory. Okay. So anyway, the state of Montana is the 4th largest after those, and it's the 8th least populated with about 1 million people. Hey, how many of you guys wanted to be a cowboy when you were growing up? I wanted to be a cowboy. I used to ride the side of my couch, on the thing, and man, I wanted to be a cowboy. If it wasn't for the lack of dental care, I would have been all over it. I go, what did those guys do in the 1800s? Anyway, in getting back to Montana, it spans the Rocky Mountains and the Great Plains and Canada up to the north. It has Glacier Park. It has Yellowstone National Park. It has Flathead Lake, and that's right where the Continental Divide is. It's 630 miles across, and it's wide open and oozing with opportunity and adventure. I don't know if you guys know, but our 26th president, Teddy Roosevelt, learned how to be that first Rough Rider that we've used in town halls before. It's a rough and tumble area. Now let me show you the opposite. I just took those pictures while we were driving back, and you know how a moving truck works, right? What happens when you hit 55 on the gas? You can't get any more acceleration. It just stops. It bogs down. If you press and stomp on it, you get nothing. There's no acceleration. The speed limit in areas of Montana goes up to 80 miles an hour. The world, in some ways, this is an example of the opposite of Montana. It's putting the limitations on something that's wild, bold, and crazy. When I was in college, there was no speed limit in Montana. That is not the Montana mindset. And I got a question for you, and it's a personal question for all of us. So you see on this how majestic and picturesque this can be and how limiting this is. So here's the question for all of you. What kind of limitations have you put on yourself? What governors or collars or speed restrictors or disclaimers have you attached to yourself? Do you have ghosts, demons? Are there any of these small voices within you saying, you know what? I don't think I can do this. Walter Carr could, you know. Maybe friends that kind of give you a break and say, hey, you know, you can stop. It'd be good. We'd still be friends. Well, I'm here to tell you, to each and every one of you, you can do this. You can do this. I'm going to finish off, and then I'm going to pass the baton to Rob. You know, I even look at it just from a personal standpoint, right? Why is it that people, when they're on a diet, and let me tell you, I've been on cottage cheese for the last 2 months. It stinks. Why are the last 5 pounds of a diet the toughest? Why are the last 5 pounds the ones that we don't lose? Why is that last few dollars the ones that we don't save? Why do we just come short a little bit in terms of number of calls? Maybe your goal is 200, but I did 195. Where is it in that GM or originations that is just shy of you going to President's Club? Let me just finalize it with this. This is, the Montana mindset is big sky country. Nothing small here. There's not even places where there's cell coverage. It's that wild up there, you know? It's wild. It's unapologetic. It's brash. It's unyielding. It's unforgiving. Let me tell you a little bit, and I'll bring it in for a close. You know what the state fish is in Montana? It's a West Slope cutthroat trout. That's an aggressive fish. They took this highway. It was 10. They didn't feel happy with it. They changed it to number 1. You know what the state mammal is? Do you think it's a panda bear? A koala bear? No, it's a grizzly. This is no joke. It was on Wikipedia. If it's on the internet, it's got to be true. You know what the state flower is? A daisy? Maybe a dandelion? No, it's a bitterroot. Who comes up with a state flower called a bitterroot? What's a state tree? A weeping willow? It's a ponderosa pine, right? Straight and thick and right to the sky. What's the state motto? It's in Spanish, so I don't know that, but I know, a lot of people come up to me, you speak Spanish? I go, no, I don't even speak Portuguese. But anyway, the state motto is gold and silver. High expectations, right? They don't go, hey, you know what, our state motto is bronze, and maybe if we don't get bronze, we want pewter, right? It's precious metal. And then lastly, it's also coined as the last best place, Montana. That Montana mindset. You know, we used to say this in college, because I went to college in Eastern Washington, right? There was one saying that I can't really say this morning, but I did say it to Rob and Patrick this morning and Steve. Montana is where the men are men and the women are too. All that means is grittiness. That's all I meant by it. Another saying that we used to have is if you're going to be a bear, you better be a grizzly, right? No, we don't want no koalas here. Who watched the movie Tombstone? You know, Top Gun, Tombstone, man, it's up there, right? Do you know what Wyatt Earp said right at the end of the movie in Tombstone? He says, you gonna do something or just stand there and bleed? See, it's like some people see it. It's a great movie. Now, lastly, what's your question? What's your Grizzly expectation of yourself? Right? What are the big bear Grizzly expectations of yourself? Just keep it in mind as we move on and move to the operations side of it. Keep that Montana mindset. Okay? Are you with me? Thank you very much.